The galaxy woke up to silence. It was not the kind of silence you get in a quiet room or in the deep woods. This was bigger. This was a silence that spread across hundreds of human colonies, space stations, and trade hubs. The normal chatter on the communication lines was gone. The blinking signals from human space beacons had stopped. Even the cargo routes, always busy with ships coming and going, were now empty. For most alien species, this was impossible to imagine. Humans were never silent. They traded with everyone, argued. They laughed loudly in bars on every station. They were explorers, miners, soldiers, traders, always in motion. But now, nothing. Krell of the Varun Republic sat in his small observation chamber on the orbital station Elastor, staring at the sensor feed. Krell had been a watcher of human movements for years. It was his job to log trade patterns, watch for smuggling, and make sure no dangerous technology crossed into Varun space. He knew the human patterns better than most aliens. And what he was seeing now chilled him more than the cold of space. The humans were gone. No distress signals, no calls for help, no farewell. Every colony, every outpost, every orbital city empty trail tapped his come to the station's central AI. Confirm human traffic status in Sector 7 through Sector 14. The AI's voice came back flat. 0 vessels detected. Last human ship sighting, 18 hours, 22 minutes ago. No outgoing transmissions recorded. Krell's spines shivered. The last recorded ship had been a supply freighter. It crossed into neutral space, then vanished from scanners. No debris, no sign of attack. By the next cycle, the news spread across the Galactic network. Council worlds buzzed with theories. Some said humans had been wiped out by a sudden plague. Others claimed a rogue AI had taken control and moved them to another dimension. More whispered of an ancient enemy, something so terrible that humans fled rather than fight. Krell didn't like any of those theories. Humans didn't run without leaving a message. They were too stubborn for that. 3 days later, a piece of evidence appeared. A Varun patrol found a small trade station on the edge of human space. Inside, everything was intact. The shops still stocked, the power still running. But there was no one there. Not a single living being. The most disturbing detail was what Krell saw on the security feed. In the last hour before the disappearance, humans on the station were moving fast. They packed weapons, strange black containers, and survival gear. Several of them looked directly into the station's security cameras. Some smiled grimly. Others looked afraid. One woman, wearing the uniform of a human fleet officer, leaned close to the camera. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "It's coming. Don't follow." Then, without any fighting or noise, the humans boarded ships and left. Krell replayed that moment again and again. The officer's eyes were sharp, as if she knew someone would watch this later, and as if she was speaking directly to him. The council called an emergency meeting. Leaders from dozens of species argued across the Grand Chamber. Some demanded a fleet be sent to investigate human space. Others insisted it was too dangerous, that the humans had left for a reason, and following them might trigger the same fate. Krell listened quietly. He was not a council member, but as an intelligence observer, he had clearance to attend. His mind kept going back to the officer's warning. It's coming. That night, unable to sleep, Krell accessed a secure archive, a place where the Varun stored unconfirmed reports. Buried deep inside was a file marked Human Frontier Incident Restricted. The file was old, almost 40 years. It spoke of a mining crew on a distant human world who had dug into something strange. The report was vague, filled with blacked out lines. But one phrase remained: unidentified organic structure, dormant, extreme caution advised. The report ended abruptly. No follow-up, no confirmation, it's just silence. Krell leaned back in his chair. Could this structure be the thing the humans were talking about? Something dormant for decades? Now awake? They didn't have long to think. On the 5th day after, the humans vanished. The station received an alert from the far edge of neutral space. Cargo ship was approaching, drifting slowly. No crew response. No beacon. Its hull was scarred with deep, uneven marks, as if something had raked claws across it. The station commander ordered the ship brought into the docking bay. Krell volunteered to join the inspection team. When the airlock opened, the first thing that hit them was the smell. Cold metal mixed with something foul, like burned oil and rotting plants. The ship was dim inside, emergency lights flickering. There were no bodies, no signs of a fight. But along the walls were the marks, deep, uneven scratches, some stretching. Across entire corridors, Krell traced one with his claw and felt how sharp the edges were. Then he saw it. A message burned into the metal near the bridge. The letters were crude but clear, carved with something hot and fast. We tried to hold it back. Krell stared at the words. His stomach tightened. This was no accident. Humans knew what they were doing when they left. And whatever they were trying to hold back, they had failed. The inspection found something else. In the cargo bay, inside a cracked container, was a black residue. It shimmered faintly, as if it absorbed the light around it. The science team refused to touch it. Even from a distance, Krell felt a faint vibration in his chest, standing near the engines of a warship. The station commander ordered the ship sealed and quarantined. But Krell couldn't stop thinking about that message. That night, he replayed the human officer's warning once more. Her voice echoed in his mind. It's coming. Don't follow. But Krell knew the council. They would follow. They always followed, and when they did, it might already be too late. Across the galaxy, other alien worlds were coming to the same conclusion. Fleets began to move. Scouts headed for abandoned human systems. Everyone wanted to know where the humans had gone. None of them stopped to think. Maybe the humans had left for their sake, far beyond the council's reach. In a place where the stars were thin and cold, something moved in the dark. It had been asleep for a very long time. It was hungry now, and it knew the taste of fear. The humans had left without a word. But the silence they left behind was only the beginning. The distress call came in during the quiet hours of the station's night cycle. It wasn't a normal transmission. No official codes, no origin tag. Just a faint, broken signal cutting through static. Krell was the first to notice it on the long-range monitor. At first, he thought it was sensor noise. Then the words began to form, muffled and warped. Drifting, no crew, don't, open. The signal died before he could trace it. But the coordinates were clear, a point far out on the neutral border between Veruan space and the empty reaches of abandoned human territory. The station commander ordered an investigation. By the time the patrol reached the location, they found it a lone cargo vessel. Moving slowly, its lights dim. There's no visible power except for minimal thrusters. Krell joined the inspection crew. The docking clamps locked with a heavy thud and the airlock hissed open. Sharp, metallic smell drifted in like cold iron mixed with something bitter. The air inside was unnaturally still. No one answered their hails. The corridors were lit only by failing emergency lights. The shadows seemed to move with each flicker. There were no bodies, no signs of a struggle, but the walls told another story. Deep gouges cut through the metal in jagged, overlapping patterns. Some looked like claw marks. Others were long and smooth, as if something had dragged itself along the walls. Near the bridge, Krell saw the message again, burned into the wall. With a cutting torch, we tried to hold it back. The words sent a chill through him. In the crew quarters, they found strange black residue clinging to the ventilation grills. It pulsed faintly under the flickering lights. When one of the science officers tried to scan it, the scanner failed. The readings scrambled as if the device itself was rejecting the data. There were audio logs. Only fragments could be recovered. Voices screamed in different tones, overlapping as if many people were shouting at once. The words were hard to make out. Close the doors. Too fast. It's inside. Before dissolving into static, Carol felt something wrong in the air. Not danger in the usual sense. Not like facing a pirate or a predator. This felt older, heavier, as if the ship itself remembered what had happened and wanted to push them out. When they returned to the station, the commander ordered the ship quarantined. No samples allowed off the hull. No one could explain what had happened. But Krell's mind kept circling back to the empty human systems and the whispered warning from the station logs. Later, alone in his quarters, Krell replayed the faint signal. That had led them to the drifting vessel. He amplified the audio, cleaned the static. And there, buried beneath the distortion, he heard something else. Not a voice, but a low, drawn-out sound. It wasn't mechanical, wasn't human. It was breathing, and it didn't sound like it was afraid. Krell had to know more. The cargo ship, the claw marks, the black residue, none of it made sense unless there was a bigger picture. And if anyone had pieces of that picture, it was the humans. The problem was, humans were gone. Or almost gone. The Council's deep archives, far from public networks. There were files the Varuan called shadow records. These were fragments of restricted reports, things found in the aftermath of battles, accidents, or secret missions. Most were incomplete. Some were deliberately censored. Only a few intelligence officers had access, and even then, you had to know exactly what to look for. Krell spent hours sifting through meaningless logs till he found something strange. Classified human entry marked with an outdated code, nearly 40 years old. The title read, FR19, Excavation Halt. Organic Discovery. He opened it. The report was from a human frontier world called Dernisfor, a mining colony far out on the spiral arm. According to the first entries, the miners had hit something while drilling deep under the planet's crust, something that wasn't rock or metal. The chief geologist's log was shaky and unfocused. Day 12, we hit a layer. It's not a fossil. Not exactly. Feels alive. The surface reacts to light, almost like it's breathing. Told HQ, we need xenobiologists. They said keep digging. Several entries were blacked out entirely. Then came a final, desperate note. It's not a layer, it's a wall. And something is on the other side. It's moving now. Stop the drills. Stop. The file ended there. No follow-up. No evacuation notice. No death reports. Just silence. Krell leaned back, his spines tightening. 40 years ago. And now the humans were gone. Could this be the same thing? Had they known it would come back? He searched deeper. There was another record, much newer. It's only 5 years old, under a project name, Black Star Containment. This time, the attached video file opened to reveal a human scientist. It was pale, her hair damp as if she had been sweating for hours. Her voice shook. We tried to lock it away. We built walls around it, layers of energy and metal, but it's learning. It watches us through the walls. We can feel it inside our dreams now. It knows our names. The scientist glanced off screen, as if hearing something. Then she leaned forward, almost pressing her face to the camera. If you find this, don't try to study it. Don't try to fight it. Burn everything and run, please. The feed cut out. Krell's claws hovered over the console. The pieces were coming. Together, but not in any way he liked. The humans had found something decades ago, tried to contain it, and failed. And now, every human world was empty. He was still staring at the screen when the station lights flickered. Just once, a brief drop in power, then steady again. But in that instant, all the monitors went black, and in the silence, through the static of the he heard it. A low, slow exhale, like something breathing. Not from the hallway. Not from outside the station, from inside the network. The first attack didn't come with warning sirens or flashing lights. It came with silence. Krell was in the station's observation deck when the long-range sensors picked up the convoy 12 mining ships from a neutral guild, hauling ore from the asteroid fields at the edge of abandoned human space. Everything looked normal. Their transponders pinged in perfect rhythm. Crew chatter buzzed faintly over open comms. Then, one by one, the signals vanished. No weapons fire. No explosions. Just gone. The comms lit up with confused voices from the surviving ships. "Central, do you read? We're losing escorts. It's not on scanners. It's just wait. I see something." The voice cut off mid-sentence. Krell pulled the feed from the last ship's external cameras. For a moment, all he saw was the black of space, the cold shimmer of asteroid dust. Then something shifted, a shadow, but not cast by any object. It moved like liquid, bending starlight around it, and then it hit. The shadow unfolded into a shape that made no sense, jagged one moment, smooth the next. Limbs, or what might have been limbs, lashed out, piercing the mining ship's hull as if it were paper. Ship's lights flickered once, then died. On audio, there was no explosion.
Alarms.
Only the screaming. Dozens of voices layered over each other, as if the creature's attack had pulled the sound right out of them. The station's control room erupted into chaos. The commander barked orders to scramble defense ships, but Krell knew it was too late. In less than 3 minutes, every ship in the convoy was gone. It's not destroyed, gone. Their mass, their heat, their signals, erased from existence. The last transmission, recovered from a damaged drone, showed the shadow pulling itself away from the wreckage. And in that moment, the surface shifted. It wasn't just a shape. It had faces. Dozens of human faces, flickering across its dark surface, like reflections on water. Some screamed. Others were silent, and one of them was the human officer from the abandoned station, the one who had warned its coming. "Don't follow." Krell's spines locked stiff. The council declared a full quarantine on the entire sector. No ships in, no ships out. But rumors were already spreading. The miners who had escaped claimed the shadow could move through space, like thought appearing anywhere it wanted. Others said it could take the shape of what it had consumed, wearing the skins of its victims. Krell didn't believe all of it, but he believed enough, because deep down he realized something terrible. This wasn't the first time it had struck. It was just the first time anyone had been watching. If you want, I could take part 5 of the human plan and make it the big twist reveal, showing that humans didn't flee to hide, but to lead this nightmare into a trap. That's where the plot turns from pure fear to desperate strategy. Krell had always thought humans were reckless, bold to the point of stupidity. But the more he pieced together their disappearance, the more he saw something else. They hadn't fled to hide. They had moved with purpose. The council's analysts argued that the humans were scattering in all directions, trying to escape whatever this nightmare was. But Krell saw the star maps differently. The patterns weren't random. Each route, each jump, bent toward a single region of space far beyond mapped territory, a stretch of darkness with almost no stars. A place most species avoided because their sensors returned nothing but static. The humans were going there. All of them. He found proof in a series of intercepted navigation orders. Buried inside the logs of a smuggler ship that had accidentally crossed into human space before the vanishings, the orders were encrypted, but Krell's station AI managed to break part of it. The coordinates pointed to a system without a name, only a designation, VX993, and attached to every order was the same phrase, "Final Convergence." The council dismissed it as nonsense, but Krell knew better. Humans didn't name things lightly, especially something this grim. The real question was why. Why lure the nightmare to a place so far from anywhere? I risk bringing every last human ship to the same spot when scattering would make them harder to find? The answer came from an unexpected source, a human distress probe found drifting near the quarantine line. It was damaged beyond repair, but one message looped endlessly inside. A man's voice, hoarse but steady. "If you are hearing this, do not follow us. This is not retreat. This is containment. We will end it where the stars are dead. Whatever you think you know about it, you're wrong. It's older than all of us, and it learns. If we fail, burn everything. If we succeed, there will be nothing left to find." The message repeated twice before the probe's core overloaded, as if even it didn't want to exist long enough for someone to study it. Krell leaned back in his chair, staring at the fading data. The humans weren't hiding from the nightmare. They were dragging it into the dark. And whatever they were planning to do there wasn't just a trap, It was a tomb. But the tomb would need a lock, and Krell had no idea what kind of lock could hold something that could erase ships and wear the faces of its prey. The lock wasn't meant to last forever. Maybe the humans didn't expect to survive at all. If you want, I can now write part 6, The Trap is Set. So we see the massive human fleet, strange superstructures they're building, and the ominous sense that they're preparing for a battle they know they won't walk away from. That's where the tension spikes before the climax. The unlit world hung in space like a dead eye. No sunlight reached it. No nearby stars offered warmth. Its surface was black rock and frozen oceans, locked in an endless night. For as far as sensors could scan, there was nothing else. No asteroid belts, no comets, no drifting debris. Just the planet, turning slowly in the void and around it. Humans, Krell had never seen so many human warships in one place. Heavy cruisers, stealth frigates, carrier vessels bristling with launch bays, hundreds of ships forming a silent wall around the planet. No lights, no transmissions, just silent formation. At first, he thought they were waiting for the nightmare. But then he saw them. The towers. They floated in orbit around the dark world. Colossal spires of black and red metal, each one the size of a battleship. Surfaces pulsed with a dim, crimson glow, as if something deep inside them was alive. Long strands of energy stretched between them like threads in a web, and the web was slowly tightening around the planet below. Krell's shuttle kept its distance, hiding behind the shadow of a moon fragment. He activated his long-range visual feed, zooming in on the structures. They weren't just weapons, at least not in the conventional sense. Their design reminded him of gravitational anchors used to bend space during high-speed travel. But these were far more powerful, and all of them were locked in on a single target, the black planet itself. Then, on his secondary display, something appeared. The nightmare didn't arrive like a ship. It didn't drop out of warp or light. Up the sensors. One moment, the space beyond the planet was empty. The next, the stars bent, twisted, and a shadow peeled itself out of the darkness. It was larger than before. Its surface rippled with movement, human faces flickering and fading. Into alien ones Krell didn't recognize. At its center was a hollow void, a pit of darkness so deep it made his vision blur to look at it. The human fleet didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, the towers around the planet pulsed brighter, and the strands of energy began to shift. Space itself trembled as though something enormous were pulling it inward. Krell realized what they were doing. They weren't trying to destroy the nightmare with firepower. They were trying to drag it. The gravitational web was bending space like a trap. Folding the shadow toward the planet below, the nightmare resisted. Its form splintered and spread, stretching into jagged arcs of black light, striking at the nearest human ships. A cruiser erupted into silent flames, its pieces swallowed before they could drift away. Still, the fleet held position. Krell felt his spines prickle. The humans weren't acting like they wanted to win. They were acting like they were holding a door closed and knew that door would break. The web tightened. The nightmare screamed not in sound, but in a pressure that filled Krell's skull and made his vision swim. The shadow writhed, its stolen faces twisting in agony and rage as it was pulled down toward the black planet. The humans had set their trap. But even from here, Krell could feel it. This thing wasn't finished, fighting under the dim glow of Kausa. The derelict station's emergency lights. Captain Rins stood staring at the frozen image on the console screen. It was the same footage she'd played at least 50 times in the last hour, the one from the final minutes before the humans disappeared. A dark corridor, the sound of heavy boots fading, a single human voice saying something she still couldn't fully translate, then silence. Total consuming silence. Her crew worked quietly behind her, their movements stiff with unease. They had been trained for war, piracy, and dangerous salvage. But this was different. The humans had left without firing a shot, without leaving a single body behind, without even a trace of the weapons they were famous for. And yet every sensor reading screamed that something had been left here, something alive, something hostile, something they had deliberately unleashed. A static-laced voice crackled over her come. "Captain." "We found another one." Rin turned sharply. "Another what?" The voice hesitated. "Containment pod. Same design as the others. But this one? It's open." Her pulse quickened. "Is it empty?" Another long pause. "No. Whatever was in here, it's gone." Rin didn't like the way the crew member's voice trembled on the last word. She made her way down to the cargo bay, boots clanging against the grated floor. The air was thick, cold, and smelled faintly metallic. The pod sat in the center of the room, its reinforced door bent outward, as if something inside had pushed its way free. Around it, the deck was scratched long, deep grooves, as though metal claws had raked through the floor. The markings led away from the pod, disappearing into the darkness of a service tunnel. Her second-in-command, Luro, stood beside the pod, his face pale. "Captain, this isn't human tech, at least not all of it. The structure is theirs, but the containment seals, they're biological, grown into the metal." Rin frowned. Grown. It's like it was alive before it was built. It's like they were keeping something inside itself. The deck lights flickered. All at once, a deep, resonant sound echoed through the tunnel. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't a mechanical hum. It was something in between, a low, pulsing vibration that made Rin's bones ache. The crew froze. "That came from Section 18, Leroux whispered. Rin swallowed hard. "Seal off the tunnel now." But before anyone could move, a sharp metallic clang rang out closer, too close. The sound of something moving in the darkness. The crew raised their weapons, aiming into the black maw of the tunnel. The sound came again, this time with the faint scraping of claws on steel. Then, a flash, a glint of something wet and glistening, reflecting the emergency lights for just an instant before it darted back into shadow. One of the crew, a young tech named Var, stepped forward despite Rin's warning growl. "Maybe it's injured." Maybe he didn't finish the sentence. From the darkness, something moved so fast that none of them truly saw it. One moment Var was there, weapon raised. The next, he was gone, yanked into the shadows with a sound like tearing metal. His scream was cut off in less than 2 seconds. A trail of dark liquid, too thick to be blood, dripped back toward the tunnel entrance. The crew held their ground, breathing hard. Rin's eyes never left the black opening ahead. She didn't know what had taken Var. But she knew 2 things with absolute certainty. It wasn't human, and the humans had brought it here on purpose. The thought twisted her stomach. Why would they unleash something like this? What had they been? Thinking, the cum crackled again, this time with the panicked voice of the bridge officer. "Captain, we've got movement on all decks. It's multiple life signs, unknown signatures, and they're spreading fast." Rin's grip tightened on her weapon. "Evacuate non-essential crew to the central hub. We hold this section as long as we can." As the others moved to obey, Rin stayed rooted to the spot, staring into the tunnel. Somewhere deep inside her, a terrible realization began to form. This wasn't random. This was a release, and they, the so-called predators of the galaxy, were now trapped inside the cage. The humans had left behind. The low vibration came again. It's time from behind her. They weren't hunting it. It was hunting them. Darkness hung over the galaxy like a silent shadow. The human fleet had returned, but they were not the same. Their ships were blackened, covered in strange, shifting patterns of light that seemed to move on their own. No transmissions came. No flags, no hails. Only the deep hum of engines, too old and too alien to be human. The alien coalition gathered in panic. The humans had been gone for decades, leaving without a word, vanishing into the cold void. Everyone thought they had perished or found something too terrible to return from. Now, they were here, and their arrival was not a celebration. It was a warning. On the bridge of the coalition flagship, Admiral Keller could barely speak. Those are not the ships they took," he whispered. "Is something else." The scanners picked up readings that made no sense. Energy levels far beyond what any known reactor could produce. Life signs that were human yet not quite human. Their DNA was twisted, altered, layered with something alive, but not biological. The humans did not attack at first. They simply spread out, their massive silent vessels positioning themselves over key worlds across the galaxy. No explanation, no demands, just watching. Then it began. One by one, entire colonies went dark. No explosions. No screams over the coms. Just silence. Days later, when scout ships dared to enter the zones where the humans had passed, they found cities intact, technology untouched, but no life. Every living thing was gone. Plants, animals, people, even microbes. The planets themselves seemed sterile. The coalition held emergency councils trying to understand. But those who had warned about this day, the historians, the archivists, knew the truth. Long ago, humans had spoken of something in the deep void, something they feared, but also respected, something they swore never to release. The nightmare now, it was free. A transmission finally came through from the human flagship. The voice was deep, calm, and carried no emotion. "We warned you," it said. "You kept building. You kept expanding. You left no world untouched. We left to find a way to stop it. But there is no stopping it now. It has chosen." And then the transmission ended. Admiral Keller's claws tightened around the rail. If the humans were telling the truth, then this was not war. Something worse. Something that could not be bargained with. Something that might see the entire galaxy as nothing more than a meal. Across the stars, the humans moved again slow, deliberate, inevitable. And wherever they went, silence followed. The nightmare had begun to feed, if you want. I can now create all 8 detailed Leonardo AI 8K image prompts for this story, so your YouTube video has visuals that match each part perfectly. That would make it much more gripping for your viewers.